I'm here with 3 helms that were shipped to us by a medieval shop a while back. We took them out of the box, we looked at them, we haven't got to do anything with them. Today, I've made an analog ballistics gel head, and I'm going to pick one of these historical helmets, designs, to test on the analog ballistics gel head and see how well it actually defends it. I want to start off by saying this is kind of unique because it looks like a progression of helms to me. We've got an earlier century helm, one in between, and then a later century helm. The reason I say that is right here we have a Norman helm, which, yes, this is based on an old Norman helmet that had a little more detail on it, so it's not an exact replica. This one's 14 gauge. It's the thickest of the helms we have here. It's very beautiful. Like I said, it didn't have the detail here, but it doesn't have the damage either of the historical one. I believe this one will hold up very, very well. But as you look, when I put it on, it has a chin strap. It has strapping on the inside, but this would be worn over some type of arming cap and a coif, or possibly a halberd with a hood, a mail hood on it. So that would be your protection around the head, other than the actual spangen style or conical style top and nasal. The nasal was your main protection for your face, other than the mail that might be cinched up around it, and that would be it. But even in the Viking Age, we see stuff like, we have a famous helm that has the ocular on it, which was a little more face protection. We also know that sometimes they hung pieces of metal off the back that were kind of hinged on to kind of help stop things from cutting behind the neck, because a lot of times they weren't even wearing mail on it. Sometimes they'd hang mail off the back. I mean, even early period we believe they did. We see places where there's rings for it. But you start seeing stuff like them putting a strip down the back, or cheek plates on even a spangenhelm with the nasal, or a little more face protection like the ocular. Like the Sutton Hole helm has a full face. That was way earlier period. But you see that. Well, what happened is after the Norman Age, people started using more mail and more armor, and they needed more protection because they had stuff like lances and so on, and they were using more cavalry. They were using heavier swords that were even two-handed when you get around the 12th century. They were using stuff to try to break bones under the mail and so on. So you see people wanting stuff like a face, and you do. Around 11th, 12th century, you'll see a dome top and just a face that's riveted on to help protect the face. That would help against arrows when you're riding into combat for your knight, or it could actually help stop a lance point possibly from killing you, or polearm. This one here actually has the cheek plates I was talking about, where they actually hinge something on there. So we have our hinged idea here, but it has cheek plates or ear plates. And then we have a piece that's not very big riveted on the back. Like I said, you can see that earlier period in some depictions, and old Scandinavian depictions of somebody with a piece on the back to help protect the back of their neck. So I really kind of like this. The difference is this is not solid. This is a visor that moves up and down. So yes, there is no historical counterpart to this. It's not a Byzantine helm. That's what it's listed under at medieval shop. It's Byzantine, but it's more of a transitional helmet. Before they start getting to stuff like the Sugarloaf here, where they had great helms. Needed even more protection. So we'll set this down here, and we'll talk a second about the great helm or the Sugarloaf helm. And if you look at the Sugarloaf, it was normally worn as a great helm a lot of times, and you would have a small cap helm on, your mail, and then it would go over it. This is a beautiful helm here, but if you notice, it's much larger to my head. And the reason it would be much larger is, like I said, you might have a lot more defenses underneath it. My hat came off. But you'd have more things underneath it, and that would help protect the head. Well, I'm not going to go all that trouble today. This one's 16 gauge. It would hold up quite well. I'm not going to be out there putting other stuff under it like that. I will have army caps and stuff. This one, we know its limitations. Like I said, you'd be dealing with the mail more than anything. This one here, 16 gauge. And I think this is the helm to test. This is going to be fun. I think it's a very plausible helm historically, even though there's not a historical counterpart to this one specifically. But we have helms similar to it in many ways. We're going to go out today, test it out, and see how well it actually holds up. So without further ado, let's get going and let's get out there. I'm dressed as a Norman. I figured that would be the latest era where they still were wearing the nasal, which is one of the helms we have here, and I'm actually wearing the helm. But out of the 3 helms were received, this one, like I said, is not truly a Byzantine helmet. They did have some helms that had pieces on them for extra protection, so I can see why they would call it that. but this is more of a transitional helmet. This would be when they went from nasals to adding extra cheek plates and back pieces. Sometimes just a little piece down the back, or a large piece, or strips, other than just hanging mail. This would be somebody trying to actually maybe stop a lance, because as we know that the Normans probably started some of the earliest lance work using spears from horseback. So I thought this was very appropriate. I'm going against a transitional helmet that's later century than mine, and I'm going to use the axe and the sword and see what we can do with it. So let's go ahead and get going with it, see what we can pull off here. I'll start off with a traditional shot to this side of the helm. And we'll start off quite light, and then we'll kind of hit a little harder and try maybe the cheek plates and the face plate. Whoa! We got a nice crease in the helm. It didn't do too much to it. It's a light crease. I don't think that would have killed anybody. He seems to be intact. The good thing about this visor, the way it's set up, we can actually raise it and kind of look. And I can already tell that he hasn't taken too much damage to the arming cap and the strapping. Helm held up well for 16 gauge. Let's go ahead and try again. So I'm going to throw an overhead blow with a little more power and come more straight over the top and see how well it holds up. The other blow was quite heavy. It was a little bit harder than what I was expecting to throw, but the sword is so well balanced the way it feels, it just makes you want to put it out there. So let's go ahead and see what happens. Oh!
Nice
now that
shot.
was a powerful shot. See what we did here? I expected more of a glance, but we got a crease. If you look right here, you can see there's a crease at the top. It's not a bad crease. The helmet's holding up very well. This is a heavy blade to the extent that it's well balanced. It's not your heaviest blade, but it's still about almost a 3-pound blade. So we've got a nice crease in it. I think an axe might do more damage, but still, I think he would have felt this, but I don't think he would have been injured in any way. I really don't. I don't think he would have taken him out of the battle in any respect. You're all right in there? It looks fine, except we did shift the helmet a little too far forward. I want to try the cheek flap. The reason why, it was an upgrade from mail hanging over the side of the face with padding. You actually have a plate that's hinged. A lot of times when they do hinged plates, they have them strapped together at the bottom, like on a Roman helmet. A lot of times that's the pieces that are strapped down to help hold it on. This one is just hinged with padding under it. I'm curious how well that's going to protect him and how well it'll hold up. Let's go ahead and try that next. Wow! We hit that plate, it looked like it shifted the whole thing. We have a crease right here, if you look, a crease because I hit kind of lower than I expected. And we actually hit that back plate. I did not expect that. That means the back plate got cut into slightly on the edge. If you look back here closely, you can see it. But it seems to have protected it. We have no cut, and like I said, I can raise it up again and we'll check him. His integrity's there. It's hard to tell what the blow would feel like if you were impacted. I mean, this may have injured the man slightly, but it's not a wound that's going to kill him or take him out of the battle. That's what I say. This is actually, it actually did its job quite well. I'm going to go ahead and give it a nice thrust. Ah! I actually felt the tip of the blade punching into the metal slightly. You could feel it like kind of stick in the metal for a second right before I pulled it out. See where we hit it? We hit it right here, right next to one of the decorative brass rivets. And it actually kind of stuck the metal. I mean, it didn't go through it by any means. It didn't punch a hole even. It just stuck the metal. It actually literally, that can happen in combat. Metal, two blades can actually bite into each other, or softer steel, which of course a helm or a helm is going to be softer than a sword blade. It actually stuck in the metal slightly. I could feel it as I pulled it out. Let's go ahead and check his face. I mean, it's hard to tell on something like this. He could have got a bump to the nose that hurt, but I think he's fine. Doesn't seem to be injured in any way. and the visor did its job. So let's go ahead and try something else. If I was holding my round shield, which I would be holding at center grip in this hand, there's an attack where when you're fighting, you just throw the blade out. You can hit somebody directly in the face, the chest, and you just kind of whip the blade out and cut. I'm going to try that against that faceplate right here. The reason why, it'll have a little bit more power, and we'll see how well that protects the face. Oh! I hit that quite solid, and I actually hit high from what I expected. I hit the eye. It did not go into the eye, but I cut above slightly and below the eye lightly. You can see the scoring. It's a very good blade. It's very sharp. It's a Robert Tim's sword, by the way, from Medieval Shop, but it cut into the metal slightly, but the metal held up. It's actually protected him. His eye would be intact. It wouldn't have made it to the eye. And I'm not seeing any damage to the man's face or the nose. I mean, the nose, you would see splitting on it or tearing, and I'm not seeing anything like that. So that means the visor's doing its job. The only thing I could see is like a lance blow or something to the face. You might get a broken nose or something possible. But other than that, it's working well. It's doing its job well. Well, let's get Norman on its arse. That's what I say. I'm going to pull out an axe. Might not be a great axe, but it's an axe. It's a nice one-handed bearded axe. Let's see what we can do with that. I think that would be the solution. If you were there with your kite shield or your bayou shield when you were fighting, and your sword wasn't cutting it, I think you'd go to your axe. Let's go ahead and see what we can do here. I'm going to go ahead and give it a nice overhead shot. A little more power. This should be a little more damaging to the helmet. I don't know what it's going to do to our opponent, but let's give it a good whack. Oh! Oh, that left a nice little crease in here. It really did. We've got a nice crease right here on this side of the helm. I don't think he has been defeated. I really don't. Honestly, it put a different style crease. It's a little more bulbed in for the shape of the axe blade, but it doesn't seem to have done much more than the actual sword would have. He seems to be okay. We'll know for sure in a minute, but I don't think that did anything much more than the actual sword shot did. I'm going to go ahead and hit the earpiece, the cheek plate, and see if that actually protects the side of his head with the axe. I mean, the axe is going to have a little bit more force, I imagine, focused in that area and not distributed between all the plates. So let's go ahead and see what happens. Oh! See what happened here? I am examining it just to see if we have any, other than maybe him feeling the force of that blow through this plate. And I'm sure I can feel that it hit it hard and the whole head moved and the helm was jostled around. I mean, you could possibly get knocked out from something like that. This focused hitting on there like that, that could cause a knockout type situation, hitting the side of the neck, in the nerves and under the ear, and right behind the ear and jaw in this area, the mastoid area. But other than that, I mean, that's a possibility. We can't guarantee that. The man survived the blow. It didn't cut him. I don't think it injured his neck in any way. We could have some kind of weak head, and we're not having that. So it actually held up quite well. Alright, since we've been going through there replicating the same attacks, pretty much other than thrust, with the axe, the only one left is going to be the face shot, where I throw straight into the face, and a hacking style motion. It's a real quick, fast attack, hard to defend against. We'll try that right now. Oh! It put a nice dent in it and cut into it, but it didn't go through it in any respect. That was beautiful. His face is fine. We do have a small problem here. I'm going to show y'all. The rivet pieces actually popped loose from that. I don't know if they were so much rivets or they were small screw-in style rivets. I'll have to look. They might have just loosened up from us working with it. I'll let you all know in a second. But we kind of lost our visor now. It's just come completely off. But you can see this beautifully right here. You can see the dent in it. That was me holding back. But he's pretty much protected. He's got a little damage to his chin. The damage is all flesh on top of his bones. So he might have a little busted chin here. Like I said, his nose might have got hit a few times too, but it looks like we have some chin damage, like he's actually got a busted chin from that. So this one possibly could have knocked him out, with your chin getting knocked down in this angle, and your chin strap, I mean if the chin strap was on tighter, I didn't have it on that tight, it could have maybe knocked it out, I'm going to be honest. And we did lose the visor, so he wouldn't have had the face protection anymore. But all in all, this helm has held up excellent. These are basically little hexagonal nuts that are supposed to lock. You can tell they're creased where they were locked in place. But from us hitting it over and over, which is not a bad thing. I mean, screw roots aren't totally period for early period. They did have screw roots later century, and these are as a hinge is what it is. What they've done is a little hexagonal bolt, and they have it screwed in. You could do this with possibly a hammer-in style rivet if you wanted to make it more period. The helm itself is not based on any historical replica. I mean, it's not an exact historical replica of any specific helmet. But if you wanted to do that, yes, you could rivet it yourself and make a hinged rivet, or it'd be more likely not to unscrew. That's what happened. We had it unscrew. If you still get knocked loose with extreme force, I mean, any of the hinged rivets back in the day could have got knocked out if it's only held by two on the visor. It's impacted like that. So this isn't a severe flaw or anything. Skallagrim Nielsen had tested a whole series of helms or hjelmer. He had everything from a leather spangenhelm with iron bands to helms like this. I mean, not exactly like this, but helms that had full solid domes or conical tops. And he used a hammer, I believe, on the spangenhelm and did better with the hammer side of the axe. So we're just going to try, I mean, to see what happens. This helm's held up so well. I don't think it's going to make a very big difference, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a good smack with the back side of the axe. Oh! Well, I don't think it injured him any worse. We have a nice dent in the top of the helmet. It's shaped like the actual square hammer on the back of our axe. Very similar to what he got, but he had a spangenhelm, I believe, where he had better results, where he was hitting the actual platelets. So this one doesn't have that. It's more of a shape that can glance. We still got a nice dent, and I think it transferred way more energy. So who knows, on a helm like this actual hammer on the back of the axe on a helm like this might transfer more energy than the edge at times. Seriously. If you weren't trying to actually cut the man or hit an opening or a niche, you might do better actually hitting with the back of the hammer. It actually seems like it has a really good impact. I don't think he's injured. We'll go ahead and start taking this off. I am seeing no damage to his head. The only thing I saw, like I said, is the nose looked like it was touched a few times. We don't know how much that would do in real life. You might get a little bit of a blooded nose. I don't think it would be broken or anything. This is gel. The chin took a little bit of damage from that axe shot. The chin actually, you know, like split a little bit over the bone. To me, that says your chin might be busted open and bleeding. But we don't know how much force was transferred over to that jaw, so I mean, could have been a knockout, possibly, maybe. And I'm not seeing any damage around the neck. This is really hard to pull up over the head, so I'm not going to pull it over the head right now. But you can see the neck. I'm not seeing any damage anywhere else. The skull is totally intact. I don't see any splitting or anything in the gel. So basically this man survived everything. Whether he was slightly incapacitated or slightly disabled, he wasn't killed, and he would still be on the field alive if no one would have finished him and he hit the ground. So I think the helm did its job. I just recommend maybe if you want to do something with the actual hinging, you could do that. You might even want to strap it down if you want to wear the helm for some kind of reenactment combat, and you might also try attaching the strapping to the actual cheek plates if you want. That's something you could do. Maybe put some padding in them if you're not going to wear an arming cap directly under it. But I think the helm all in all held up well, and I'm sure it speaks for the helm I'm wearing and the Sugarloaf helm. They're the same, made by the same manufacturer. They're put together in the same way, except there's no hinging on this one or the other one, and I think they will perform well. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and farewell.